Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Hey everybody, welcome. It is Wednesday, September 15th, and we're back. And Megan is here with me. Megan, hi, how are you?
Hi, doing well. How are you, Jackson?
I'm great. The last time we did this, you were here in the room with me in the studio.
Yep.
And now you're back in Southern California and I'm here in Central Florida, and we are looking at the bar exam world. It was really nice to take a few weeks off, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like students were able to do the same thing. I know people all of our July takers got to take a big deep breath after the exam. And yes.
Yeah. And it was good. And we appreciate so much all of you giving our entire staff just a little bit of time to catch our breath. Going back to really 2019, we had not had a break at all. And everybody really needed it, didn't we?
Really?
Yeah. So we are glad to be back. We're excited to be back starting a new season. So we've had a lot going on. Today, what we want to do, we've got a couple things to talk about. We have created in our off season, is that a good way to put it, off season? We created a brand new course platform that we're very excited about. We're going to debut it to everybody today, but I know some of you have already been on the site. And we were going to show it to you and walk you through it, some of the features of this new site. And so that's a big thing. We're also going to talk about some of the programs coming up, things like group coaching and the personal writing workshops that Megan leads. And then we're going to talk a little bit about results. The very first set of results in the country have come out in the last week or so. Several relatively small UBE states, the biggest of which is North Carolina. But generally, we're just seeing mostly some small states leading up to next week, and the Florida results, which will be the first major state in the country in terms of numbers of bar takers. And then we're going to answer your questions that you've sent us over the last few weeks. As not surprisingly, there aren't a lot of those at this stage. People are just getting underway. Isn't that your impression, Megan? They're just revving back up for the February exam.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll take some questions.
I think we've got some fun new things, so we should jump right in.
All right, well, let's jump into the fun new things. And the funnest, newest thing is that after 15, 20 years of delivering our course in a platform on our site at celebrationbarreview.com, we took the off season to migrate all of our materials to a brand new course platform. And I'm just super excited about it. And the early feedback has been really great. I want to share with you, I'm going to show you what the site looks like. Megan's going to probably jump off camera here while we do that. But I want to show you what the new site looks like. And for those of you who are registered for a 2022 or later exam, you should already have received your login credentials. And I do need to say this, if you were a student, have been a student up till now, and you've been using the old WordPress site, and that's where we hosted it, it was on a WordPress page, those credentials will not work any longer to get you into the course. So you're going to have to reach out to us and tell us who you are and what you're doing. We know we've got some people that are lurking around that have been using the old site for probably a few years without telling us that they're there. But now you're going to be blocked. You will have to get to this new site. And when you get to the new site, it will say register for the course. And I'm showing you the UBE course, but there's a separate course for every exam: California, Florida, Georgia, UBE, the multi-state only if you're just doing the multi-state, and the California first year. There's also a separate course for the MPRE, and there are separate courses for things like the Abundance for Bar Studies MasterClass, PhotoReading. We've set it all up on here. So again, I'm very excited about it, but this is what the site will look like for you when you first come in. And you'll see it's got some information here, and you can actually preview all of the units and lessons. That's how we structure it, as units. Here is Unit 1, welcome to the course, and then these different lessons. And each lesson is numbered for you, and it's got all of the information. Now we're going to jump in and look at what some of those pages look like. But just to give you a sense, we go all the way through All of your documents are here for you as digital documents. There's a digital course library, so you can read everything online, but you can also download everything. So you'll be able to download all of the PDF files, and that was difficult to do before. Now you can do it very easily. You'll also find that we've got all of the videos right here for you. So when you're in a lesson, you're actually going to have the video right there. And then you'll also have the ability, when we get down to things like essay writing, the question will be right there for you, and the model answer will be there for you. And when you're doing multiple choice questions, you'll find that we've got the questions for you in different formats, digital PDF, as well as in the Test Moz test application. And it's all right there for you. So very convenient. And literally all you're going to do is follow all the way through the assignments as you see them. Each assignment will identify roughly how long it should take you to go through it. As you can see, it's a comprehensive set of course materials here. I'm going to scroll down to down near the bottom just for a moment. You can see in UBE, we go through all of these subjects. And then when we're done with the end of the substantive assignments, now we add in the nutshells of law and the review for each subject with doing more questions, MBEs and essays in this case, all the way through. So your review is structured as well. Then we've got your final preparation to take full-length questions and do practice tests. And then we've got a wrap-up review of everything. So you can see it just takes you right through step by step. And then at the end, we've got the video countdown and the self-care videos and everything else that you need. It's something that is accessible on any device, a laptop, a desktop, but also a phone or a pad, any mobile device. So that's one of the pages I wanted to show you. The other page that I want to show you is actually to look at what the course site looks like. So we're in the UBE course here, and you can see this says how to use this course, and there's the video right there to watch. And here's the information and the instructions. There's some optional assignments, things that you don't have to do, but if you want to take deeper dives, they're right there for you.
Yeah, so our hope with the new course platform basically is that it will just be a really simple way for you to know exactly what you need to do next. I saw someone said, loving how they can see their progress. Someone else that I can easily pick up from where I stopped. That's exactly what we were looking for. So I'm so glad to hear that you're enjoying those pieces of it. We want it to be no searching around trying to find, okay, it says now I need to do the contracts question, multiple choice questions. Okay, let me pull out another book and flip through it. It's just a real simple, here's your outline, here's your essay that we want you to practice, here's the questions that we want you to do, everything just following the pattern. And then you have a broad view as well of the whole course and can go to specifically what you need when you need it. Definitely there's check-ins along the way, assessment pieces and places where you can see how well you're understanding the material so far.
Yeah, all of those pieces, everything is right there, all your videos, all your books, all your questions, and it literally takes you step by step through. And then there are, as Megan described, some of these self-assessment worksheets, which help give us some information, but let you keep track of how you're doing. We've refreshed everything. I just think it's got a really nice feeling to it. It's easy to access. You don't have to jump between your state course and the multi-state course. Probably the number one question we get here is, where do I find X? I think the where do I find questions probably go away. And the people who've been on the course have given us really great feedback. They really like the look of the pages. So that's what's going on. If you need help getting onto the site, send an email to June. Again, it's june@celebrationbarreview.com, and we will be glad to help you. Okay.
All right. Would you like to talk next about group coaching and what that's going to look like for this next bar season?
Yeah. Let's start with you describing what group coaching is, if you don't mind, and then I'll talk about the schedule. How's that?
Yeah. So group coaching is included for every single one of our students. There's no extra cost. And it is a small group led by someone who passed the bar using Celebration Bar Review. And it's a really great opportunity to discuss study strategies and tips, where you are emotionally with the bar exam, encouragement, just concerns. It's a really great place for all those sort of ancillary pieces of your bar exam study. It's not all about like, how am I doing with this subject, but how am I doing as a person as I study? And so that's really, these groups are a great way for you to connect with other people who are studying for the bar and planning on taking it, and getting encouragement from one another and support. So we really encourage everyone to take advantage of group coaching. Like I said, it absolutely no extra cost. It's included for all of our students, and the people who run the group coaching sessions are amazing. They're incredible, successful students of ours who wanted to give back and help other people who are in the same boat that they were in not too long ago. And then, of course, we also have one special group coaching session that's with June. And June is not a lawyer. She's not taking the bar exam, but she does mindset coaching, which is incredible and incredibly helpful for people who work with her. So that's particularly great if you really are struggling with getting yourself into a positive place emotionally and mentally for the bar exam.
Yeah. And that's actually the most popular of the group coaching calls historically. It's a great session. So let me tell you what we've got scheduled as we start to ramp up, and recognizing that we're still a little ways out from the February exam, but we wanted to get group coaching underway because this is a great time to start your studies. And if you've been trying to catch your breath like we did, this is the time. Middle of September is now when we turn on the engine and say, let's start going. So we have 3 group coaching calls on a weekly basis at this stage. So did I miss anything about group coaching?
Nope, I think that's it. I definitely just want to encourage people to do it. Take advantage of it for sure. I think it's an invaluable resource. I don't know anybody who does the group coaching and says, well, that was a waste of time.
I don't think most bar reviews do group coaching like this. So I think it's a pretty cool resource, and it's included in your course. So take advantage of it for sure.
Yeah,
okay?
Definitely.
All right. Good.
Great. The next thing that we want to highlight is the personal writing workshop. So this is something that I offer just to our students. It's 2 calls with me, 2 half-an-hour calls. And the first one, we talk through FLA, how to write it, questions that you have, what does it look like in practice to actually go through an essay? What are we looking for on the bar with the writing? And then I give you a homework assignment. You write an essay and send it back to me. And then we discuss that essay, and I can see what are your strengths and weaknesses in the FLA and the essay writing process. I have just been so happy with the results that we've seen, with the number of people who've taken the personal writing workshop and gone on to pass the exam has just been really encouraging. It is an add-on, so it is an additional fee, but if you're at all struggling with the writing, or you're just unsure, or you are coming to the test having failed the writing portion in the past, I think that there's just no substitute for having someone talk to you specifically, as opposed to just hearing a generalized message about the writing.
Yeah, I think that's such a big deal, right? To be able to get this work, and this really came out of the work you did at our boot camps. Many of you now probably don't know about boot camps, but we used to do them back in the pre-COVID days. And I think it's a pretty wonderful way to get this coaching from Megan, and it's affordable. If you don't feel like you can afford 8 calls or 15 calls, and it's just too much for you, here's an opportunity to get this time. I think it's well worth it. Now, I think we also have to say to people that last season, we had to shut off access to the writing workshop a couple times during the year. There's only so much of you to go around. You're doing coaching as well as I am. So you've got your coaching load, and you've got your editorial load, and then you're doing the personal writing workshops. We try to give priority to the writing workshops, but there is a point where we shut it off. So it's first come, first served. As soon as you place your order, you'll have the opportunity to schedule the first call with Megan. These are recorded calls. You'll get the recording when you're done, so that you can go back and review it as well. It's a real bargain. I encourage you to take advantage of it. There you go.
One last note about the personal writing workshop. If you've done the personal writing workshop with me in the past, you can't redo the personal writing workshop. But what you can do is you can get an hour of coaching with me, or you can get full coaching with me or with Jackson. So if you've already done the personal writing workshop, but you don't want like 8 calls, let's say, you can just do an hour of coaching at a time. And Jackson, I believe, do you also offer hourly coaching?
I do, yeah.
So there is that option then if you just feel like you need a little check-in, and that's definitely available to you. Just email Judy.
And again, in the new course site, when you get to an appropriate spot where you might be saying to yourself, I think I need some coaching, you will, like, it's auto magic. There will be a little button on that page where you can just click right there and add it. So we have made it as simple as possible for you. So hope everybody will do that. All right. So that's personal writing. Yeah.
We have a few questions. So I want to, okay. First is Richard says, I started studying 2 months ago. I'm at the con law portion of the course. Is it too late to sign up for the writing workshop? Absolutely not. It's never too late. This is a fantastic time to do it because we have a lot of time before the February exam. I think the earlier you can get your writing on the right track, the better, but it's definitely not too late. Good question. Also not too late for anybody who wants to add in full coaching from Jackson or myself. You definitely have plenty of time to get all of the calls in if you are looking for more one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
And then the other question, see down here. Oh, there we go. Was I'm hoping to add on more writing calls with you, Megan. Can you discuss how you measure progress? It is a good question. I think that it is, I'm curious to hear what your answer to this, Jackson, is. I don't like to think of it. I think sometimes when people talk about progress with writing, they assume, and I feel like I felt this way too, studying for the bar, you assume that it's like a mountain and you're like headed up the mountain and you're progressing. And so it's like every essay that you write is better than the last. And oh, look, you've mastered this piece of writing. And so now we don't have to worry about that anymore and we can move on to next. And what I tend to see with students, especially obviously when we're working with students over the long run, over 8 or 12 or 15 calls, is it's much more of a this, right? So we're moving upwards, but we hit roadblocks. We hit essays that feels like, wow, just went a couple steps backwards. And so what I look for in terms of progress with the students' writing is I'm looking at the big picture and the overall. Where are you on the whole? So it's easy to look at each sort of individual essay, but I try to take a bird's eye view of the progress and look and see, are we having the same, whatever your problems are, it's very individualized to the student. So I can't say here's progress, how I measure progress for everyone. But let's say when we start out, are you struggling identifying where the conflicts are in the problem? I assume that by wherever you're starting from, there's a certain number of conferences then that I would assume, okay, we're going to focus on this. And then this should not be a problem anymore. That's not to say it's never going to be a problem. It's not to say you're not going to hit a really tough question and miss something. But again, bird's eye view, what am I looking for? I'm looking for what are our big areas of concern at the beginning? And are we knocking those off the list from the bird's eye view perspective of it? And then we get more nitpicky, or I get more nitpicky as we go along. So I often tell my students, if it seems like I'm really being nitpicky with you, that's a positive thing because it means that you've gotten the big pieces so well that now we can drill down into the little stuff. That's honestly the difference between a 4 and a 5, let's say, or a 5 and a 6, right? Is getting those little pieces that to you may seem like not that important, but really end up being what turn an essay from okay, maybe it's borderline or it's probably passing to, wow, stellar essay. Your grader is immediately, yeah, this is great. This is a passing exam. So any thoughts on that? It's a good question.
It's an excellent question. I think that for me, one of the things that I'm always looking at after every conference, in addition to making the video, one of the things I'm doing, and I know you do this too, Megan, is I make contemporaneous notes about what we talked about. And I will describe my notes typically in terms of structure and organization and consistency and substance, right? Are you getting the law? Are you using the right, but are you also using the right structure and format and organization? Are you finding the right disputes? And then what happens for me is that on the next call, I want to see if there's improvement in those areas that I pointed out. If we talked about organization in the last essay and the next essay comes in and it's disorganized again, even if other things are better, and I'll comment about those other things, I'm going to say, look, we're not improving here. This is not improved writing. I want to see improvement on the things that we focused on, which I think is what you're saying as well. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking for those areas. And it might be that you improved your organization on that from the last work, but your substance this time falls down. It's not as good. Or the choices you made about what to write about weren't as strong in this one as another. Or suddenly you went from 3 paragraphs to 7 in a section, or 4 or 5 or 2, whatever it might be. And so I'm looking for that consistency as you go. And then, like you said, Megan, at a certain level, once you've got the consistency of mechanics and organization, structure, those you can write FLA, then I'm digging deep. I want to know that you understand the law and the disputes, and you're making good cogent arguments, and you're analyzing using the law properly. Sometimes people say, are you going to grade? Not in the sense that you would think of somebody going, oh, I give you a check mark here and a check mark here and a check mark here. But ultimately, as we get it deeper into the course, and I'm now talking to you for the 4th, 5th time or whatever it might be, yeah, I'm digging into whether or not the law that you're just writing about, because obviously a superficial answer, even if it's well structured, isn't going to be enough. So I think that's the process that I'm looking for. And man, that's like, thanks for starting off the season with a great question. I'm impressed. I like that kind of question. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
much better than where do I find the Multistate book too?
Yeah, thanks, Adriana. That was great.
Okay, there you go. All right, gold star for Adriana.
Yeah. She says, can you, if that's not too specific, can you discuss structure versus format? You may be using these interchangeably. I think they're interchangeable.
I think they are. When I talk about format, I'm talking about fact law application. So the structure of your answer is that you've got that structure with 3 paragraphs, and then the next dispute, 3 paragraphs, and so on. And in the new course site, you'll see all of that laid out for you.
Great. All right. Great questions. Let's chat really quickly about results. So Florida is the next big one that we're waiting on. They are coming out on next Monday. So I'm sure we will be talking at our next webinar about the Florida results. But in the meantime, we have gotten some NCBE results in mostly smaller jurisdictions. North Carolina did come in. That's a big one. Then we've got Iowa, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, West Virginia, and Wyoming. So definitely, if you noticed in there, lots of not too populous states have come in. Makes sense, right?
Less than 500 people.
Totally. Yeah, quicker to grade for sure. So really interesting. We're keeping an eye on the trends with these. I am trying to compare to July 2019, not July 2020, because obviously July 2020 ended up being July 2020, August 2020, September 2020, September/October 2020, and October 2020. So we had a lot of exams then. So looking at the July 2019 administration, for many of these states, I am noticing a trend of the pass rate is significantly lower than it was in 2019. So that's not true across the board. North Carolina is pretty stable. Some of the other ones, though, it drops significantly. So again, these are smaller jurisdictions. I'm not saying like panic or anything like that, but I just want to give people an idea of what we're seeing. Certainly, I mean, I know, Jackson, you had some thoughts on why maybe we can expect to see some not as great pass rates this year as we did in 2019.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. And again, we're not trying to be Debbie Downer here. We just want to give you a realistic expectation about what we see going on. And Megan's really good at doing this sort of 30,000 foot view, and I think it's really important. Remember that going into the July 2021 exam, we got very late results out of a lot of jurisdictions from February. There was a lot of upheaval. Staffs at the bar examiners were decimated by COVID. There was a lot of things going on that made it challenging. And so you had a relatively short window of study time for a lot of bar takers. That was number 2 was that you actually had a very large group of people taking the bar, because it appeared, as it continues to appear, that this was the last online exam. And so there were a lot of people, particularly foreign attorneys in states like California and Texas and New York, who sat for that exam, who were doing it because this might be their only opportunity to take the test for a while, given COVID travel restrictions. Now, we haven't heard from any of those 3 states yet, so we don't know what's going to happen there. And they didn't have foreign attorneys in West Virginia, I'll just tell you that. But I suspect it will have an impact overall. I also think another piece of this is that coming out of the craziness of 2020 and into really, I think you have to call February 2021 a pretty crazy exam, right? They got wrapped into all of this. I think there was a collective recalibration by the bar examiners. I think they are looking at the exams a little differently, and we'll see how that plays out. I think this early trend, certainly these are all UBE states, makes me think that there was going to be some pretty tough grading. And we'll see what that looks like. We'll see what the MBE scores look like coming out of that. So I think those things all probably combine. I think we had something like a perfect storm in July of 2021. And my expectation is that we will generally see lower pass rates across the country. Now, Florida will tell us a whole lot, because now that our sample size suddenly gets really big, and now we can start to figure out really what's going on, particularly with the multi-state, right? There we're going to be able to look at it and say, okay, enough people took it that we can tell, was it a tougher exam, easier exam, whatever it might have been. The final factor that I think we've got to talk about, and I want to spend a minute with you, Megan, talking about this, was the jurisdictions that gave the test online in July. Not everyone did, but for those that did, there were significant problems with the software, with Examplify or ExamSoft. You want to talk a little bit about what happened, and then we can break down what we think the impact might have been.
Yeah, so thankfully there wasn't widespread problem where someone wasn't able to then complete the exam or wasn't given enough time. But what ended up happening was pretty widespread. A lot of people got kicked off of the system when they were on it. And so then they had to, in many cases, reboot their computers and then were able to go back in. They were given time to do that, so they weren't penalized time-wise. But obviously the disruption is the key, right? So if you're in the zone and you're ready and you're going, and then your exam crashes and your laptop crashes and you have to restart your laptop and then take a deep breath and keep going. So Jackson, what are your thoughts on what that meant for then the thousands of people who...
And that's the point. There were thousands. It was not just a handful. It wasn't just 1 or 2 here. It was big numbers of people, everything we're seeing all across the country, every jurisdiction that used online. And that included all your major jurisdictions, but it also included some of these smaller ones. And so I think it's unrealistic to assume that it didn't have an impact on people's performance. Even if they gave you the time, you had as you talk about the disruption, you had the anxiety, you had the sitting on the phone waiting, you had the whole question of how to make contact. I'm so glad that we gave that advice to our students about having the ability to get on Twitter. A lot of them did that. A lot of them made phone calls after that. And to ExamSoft, they did fix it. And so far as I know, no one was cut off of time. But then your day is longer. Everything's more tense, and I think it's going to have an impact. I would like to think our students were pretty good at managing that. I heard from a fair number of them who said, yeah, it happened. I'm not happy about it, but I feel like I managed it. But I think when we look across the whole country, I don't think we're going to get that reaction. I think a lot of people were really, really upset by it. And I think if you follow some of the social media, the Reddit threads and so on, it was pretty clear that it was a significant event. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, I know some of you are like, oh, thanks, guys. I was really optimistic for my results. Your results are your results, okay? If you feel good about the exam, nothing we said here should change that. But I think as we look at it more globally, we would be saying, be prepared for a drop in pass rates in this July 2021 exam. I think we come back into that. Remember, the trend before everything got crazy with COVID was headed downwards. The overall numbers were horrible. And if you're one of the big box bar reviews, you can't be loving that, because those are your students for the most part, and they're going down the tubes. We'll see what happens. It should be an interesting season. We'll get the Florida results, then we'll get a few more jurisdictions late in September, most of the jurisdictions in October, and then of course we get California and Georgia in November, God, I mean, how I saw somebody said that they were told mid-December for results in New York or something. That's not true. That's not going to happen. New York will probably drop somewhere early October. They never give an exact date, but that's our expectation. So we'll keep you informed as we get closer.
Wonderful. All right. Let's talk about a couple of really quick questions, and then we're going to talk about how to get back into the flow of studying for people who are just starting out. All right. First, I really want to change the jurisdiction of the test I'm taking from Texas to some other state. Do you recommend any other UBE state?
This is a good time, since this is a new season, to give our usual disclaimer that we don't offer individualized admission advice because we're not allowed to do that under our license with the bar examiners. But when we can talk about general overview of the exams, Texas is now a UBE jurisdiction. We're now up to, 35, 36 states? It's a lot that are, and adding new states, it seems like every administration. Texas has a pretty high scoring pass rate that you need. But you could sit for the exam in Texas, and if you got a 260, let's say, that's not enough to pass Texas, but it is enough to pass 5 other jurisdictions. So it doesn't matter where you take the test, you can apply your score any place that would be a passing score. If you got a 266 in Texas, you still don't pass Texas, but you pass New York and New Jersey and DC and Illinois and a bunch of other states. Again, it doesn't matter much. I think if you really are done with Texas or any state that's in the UBE, go and look for a jurisdiction that you're comfortable with, where the admissions requirements are manageable for you and the fees are manageable. And in general, when we're thinking about those kinds of jurisdictions, we like the District of Columbia a lot. We like New Mexico a lot. I would say we like North Carolina, but those aren't the only ones. And some of you may have favorites, and if you ask Brianna or Bobka, they would tell you their favorites as well. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter. You can sit anywhere for the exam. So if Texas is where you live, take the test in Texas. Just take it and go through it there, and then apply your scores. And if they're good enough, you'll get through Texas. And if they're good enough for somewhere else, you can apply the score there. You want to add anything to that? Am I getting the gist of their question?
No, yeah, I think so. I just looked it up, and Oklahoma had a 73% pass rate for this last exam. So I'm just thinking, if you live in Texas, Oklahoma's close by. Louisiana does not do the UBE. They do like their very idiosyncratic tests. So unfortunately, if you are in a part of Texas that's close to Louisiana, that would not be probably the place to go do it. But anyway, there's definitely options depending on where you are. I would think about things like travel too when you're deciding, since you're going to be back in person for the next exam. All right. I'm wondering if the time you have allotted for each UBE assignment, specifically the time for each outline and lecture on the core courses, requires strict adherence.
Yeah, this is a good question. We did a couple of things as we switched over to the new course platform. One of the things you will notice is that the book that we used to produce, called the Personal Study Guide, that book still exists. However, it no longer contains a step-by-step syllabus. And the reason is that now it's all built into the course design. One of the beauties of that is that you can pick and choose in the course from the assignments that you want to do. Now, we think you should follow all of them in the order. And within each assignment, you're going to see something that says this assignment or this video runs 3 hours, and you can see that's the running time of it right there, or the audio. And it's going to tell you it's taken 30 minutes to write this essay, or take 3 hours to do these multiple choice questions, whatever it might be. In general, those timeframes come from our experience. They're what we know most people will need to get through the work, and we're going to push you to get it done, because following the timeframes means that you have enough time at the end to follow all the way through the repetition. You remember when I was showing you the course design at the beginning, there were a lot of different units there, a lot of review, multiple times through each of those subjects, 3 times in most cases. And so in order to get through that, you need to be fairly brisk in working through things the first time. But you can see that you could see it right there. I'm going to come back to this subject here and here and here. So you don't have that fear of the unknown of what's coming next. And I think that given that, you can follow our directions and be pretty confident in them. The biggest danger, I think, when people go slowly is that they fixate and bog down and get stuck somewhere. And then they start to panic at the end because they don't have enough time to do the review that they want. And so it's a self-perpetuating cycle of frustration. So if you force yourself to go at the pace we've given you, I promise you, you can do it, even if you don't feel like you're learning it the way you want to learn initially. But you'll see that you are, in fact, getting it, and then the repetition matters. You want to add to that?
I think the key is that, like this person said, they feel like they need to listen to and read like multiple times. And I think that's the key, is you have to trust that we're not expecting you to have mastery of the subject on your first go through with it. So that when people, that's where people get stuck. And that's where I see people not actually even go and take the exam, is that they say, oh, I'm on con law and I'm going to stay on con law until I feel like I know everything that I need to know about con law to the depth that I want to know it. And then they don't move on. And then they end up not actually ever taking the test, because you're never going to feel like something perfectly. But what happens is you just end up neglecting like moving down the road. And so we just want you to keep moving forward and trust that you're going to come back to con law. You're going to come back to it as many times as you need to. So
yeah, and you can see in the new course platform all of the assignments for con law, for example. Okay, so there's 7 lessons, and each one of them are there, and you can say, well, okay, I'm going to jump to this lesson or this lesson and work it that way. I think you get a better picture of the whole study this way. We know what that whole picture is. So to us, it was like, okay, that's what they do. But I realized as I was putting this together to a student, looking at it in the old site, it would have been very hard to know, when does that train stop? When does that end? And now you can just visually see it and know what it is and go, okay, here's what I've got, and here's the other things I got to do. And I think it's more intuitive to help keep people moving. And what I'm sensing as I'm watching people get started now is they're moving better because they can see the whole pace of the course.
Yeah. All right. So getting back into the flow of studying, should people start studying now if they're taking the February test? Is that too far away? We have a question in the chat box about how do I know where to pick up in my studies from on this new site? I was in my study guide. Now I'm on this new site. Where do I start from? So in general, just with the insight and integrating it all together, should I be studying now? How do I start studying now? How do I get into the flow of it?
Those are all great. So the first answer is you should be studying now for the February exam. You should also be studying now for taking the July 2022 exam. You just don't have to study quite as much, but I would like everyone studying. This is why we took the time off. We took time off. We expected you to take time off. We didn't expect anybody to study for the last 6 weeks. Hello, it's September 15th. I now expect you to be studying. So as the professor in the room, welcome back to class, get to work, first day of class. So I do want you studying. And if you are a February bar taker, our advice to you is going to be 10 to 15 hours a week of study right now. If you can put that in, that's, I think, a minimum. If you can do more, great, but I think that's the expectation. If you're a July student, I would say 5 hours a week is plenty. In terms of how to make the transition from the old course site to the new one, we have kept the same order of assignments. So this is in the California course. I just jumped over to that one. And in this, I wanted to show you that here are all of your digital course books, and all you got to do is click on them and they will open right there. So if you don't want to download them, everything is there. But let's say that you were working on California and you were in the torts assignment in the previous course. All you're going to do is come down here to Unit 10, and you will see all of the same assignments here for you. And maybe where you were is you were ready to watch Torts Lecture 2. And so what you're going to do is just click right into that. Everything will be in the same order that you saw it. We've just added a little bit of extra optional stuff along the way, but it's very easy to identify where you want to be and what assignment you want to be doing. I think it'll be pretty intuitive to people, and they should be able to make the transition relatively easily. You'll also notice that if you're an attorney applicant in California or Georgia, or you're a Florida-only applicant in Florida, we've identified assignments that you can skip. So that's pretty easy. So here's the Multistate Torts 2 lecture. You can see it's right there. It's going to indicate that it's 2 hours, 45 minutes in length. If you want to listen to it, there's the link to listen to it, and it's right there. So that's pretty cool. And then we say you can add another 90 minutes for note-taking. So yay us. When you're ready to do performance tests, if that's there, you got the lectures and you've got the download for the questions, all of the different pieces are in the course for you. And it follows the same organizational pattern that you had in your previous syllabus. It just actually makes it a lot easier because you don't have to go back and figure out what's that next assignment or where do I find it. It's all right there for you. When it's time to read an outline, you'll see that the outline is right there and you don't have to go hunting for it somewhere. It's in the digital library. For those of you that have printed books, those are still valid and perfectly usable. But here is the outline. And again, it says, for example, this is a 3 to 4 hour assignment, and here's the download, and you can literally download just that outline. I think somebody could figure out where they need to be.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really clear and intuitive. So,
Yeah.
But we're here if you're unsure of where to go or something's not working right. Let us know and we'll help.
Can you tell I'm excited about this?
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I think it's very exciting. So definitely we're hoping then that people get started with the studying. If you haven't gotten back into it, go ahead, and I'm glad you're here and listening to this. Go ahead and get back started with your studies. It's not too early. Jackson, how many hours a week are you suggesting people study if they're taking the February exam? And then how many if they're taking the July exam?
Yeah, again, 10 to 15 hours if you're taking the February exam on a weekly basis, and about 5 hours a week if you're taking longer. If you want a refresher, if you started before and now you want a refresher, you can come in and do some of these refreshment pieces. We've even got a place where it says jump here to start studying if you don't want to go through all those other things. And you will see optional items about our course philosophy or the preview we did before the July 21 exam. And if you need instructions on how to use the course, right there, the course walkthrough has got everything. So literally, we've got it all there. One point we do want to make is that for photo readers, you have a more detailed syllabus. We haven't changed your syllabus. We have put it into the course here, but again, it follows the same order of assignments, but we haven't put all of the mind mapping pieces into this because not everyone's doing that, but I want to just show you that. So if you're a photo reader, here's the information for you, and you'll see all of the syllabus apply to your course if you're a photo reader. And if you're not a photo reader, you can also go right up there and click on that button and order photo reading for your course. So that's how that works.
Wonderful. Anything else, Jackson, that you wanted to show students before we head out for the day?
No, I'm excited to have everybody back. It's great to see you all here. If you're listening on the podcast, we're glad to have you with us. We took a few weeks off just to reset the table, and we're glad to have you on the podcast and welcome you to check out the courses if you're not a student with us. We are very excited to be really focused on repeat bar takers. I did some statistical studies, and I saw that 38% of all bar takers in 2019 were repeat bar takers. And that's the number of people who are statistically repeaters. But then of the entire body of people that took the exam in 2019, the majority failed. And so we know there are a lot of repeat bar takers out there, and we know how frustrating and discouraging it is. I got a great note yesterday from a North Carolina student in our course who raised her score. I don't know, what was it? 22 points?
I think it was 22 points, yeah.
And not only passed North Carolina, but could now wave it into a bazillion states. And I know what a great moment that is and how powerful and overwhelming it is. So I want to encourage all of you, don't give up. We're excited about the results that will come out over this season for people. We're ready to help you if the results are not favorable. We don't want you to give up. We want you to hang in. The process that we teach works. It works really well. And we think we've continued to make it better in this off season. So I'm really looking forward to the 2022 bar exam season, sharing it with you and with June and with Brianna and Bobka and all of our staff and everybody that works behind the scenes here. We're really looking forward to that. So thanks to everybody for being with us. And thank you, Megan. It's good to see you. I miss not having you here in the space with me, but we'll see you again soon. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and sign off, and we'll see everybody next week. Florida results out, and I'm sure that'll be a big part of what we talk about then.
Great. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and start studying.
Yes, start studying. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.